15 times Meg Griffin is a victim in Family Guy. Ever wondered what it's like to have the universe treat you like absolute garbage? Meg Griffin is living proof that life can be one long cruel joke. If karma exists, then Meg must have really pissed someone off in her past life, because no one gets piled on harder than her. From her own parents mocking her at every turn,
Is somebody downstairs?
Oh, God, Meg, you startled me.
and to Stewie ripping her apart with savage one-liners, Meg just can't seem to catch a break, even when she's not doing anything wrong.
By the way, I'm gonna flush your retainer down the toilet.
I've spent the past week looking into Meg's life, and honestly, it feels like the universe just hates her. Stay tuned, because you're about to find out just how bad things can get for poor old Meg. Number 1. Patriotic Games. Starting off with the time when Meg Griffin got royally screwed over at the Patriotic Games episode. When Peter gets a chance to play for the Washington Redskins, the Griffins all head to the game, and it's clear from the start that Peter's living his dream, while Meg might as well have stayed home. Peter's getting VIP treatment, everyone's fawning over him, and meanwhile Meg's just a shadow in the background, completely ignored by everyone, including her own family. But it gets even worse when Meg, in a desperate attempt to feel included, tries to talk to the team's mascot. But of course, the mascot doesn't give a single fuck about her.
Please, call me Tom.
Mr. Brady, would you please sign my Trapper Keeper?
Not only does he ignore her, but the guy practically brushes her off like she's a pile of garbage. And the worst part, her family just couldn't care less. Peter's too busy acting like a celebrity, Lois is lost in her own world, and Stewie, well, he's just Stewie. He couldn't care if Meg got hit by a bus.
Egg, stop shoving. You wouldn't even know what to do with it.
This scene is basically a slap to the face of Meg's entire existence. It's like the universe just loves to shit on her at every single turn. Even when she's just trying to be part of the family and have a good time, she gets rejected. It's classic Meg moment. She gets ignored, humiliated, and left to fend for herself. Number 2. Peter's two dads. In one of Family Guy's most brutal moments, Stewie delivers a roast so savage it could probably end Meg's entire self-esteem in one single sentence. After the Griffins completely forget her birthday, because of course they did, Meg's already feeling like the universe just doesn't give a crap about her.
Mom, Dad, I decided I want a big party this year with all my friends.
Instead of the family celebrating for her, she's faced with the cold indifference. But Stewie, who's usually busy plotting world domination, can't resist taking his shot at Meg when she's already so vulnerable.
RSVPing about Megan's party. Hello, Brian. I'm coming to Meg's party. Oh, splendid. Just
As Meg tries to stay positive and salvage what little she can from the disaster of a day, Stewie drops one of the most savage insults you could ever imagine.
These are mine. You hear me? Mine!
Now, this is no mild burn. This is a complete dehumanization. Stewie doesn't just call her ugly or stupid. He basically strips away her entire humanity, reducing her to a punchline about a bad haircut. But Stewie doesn't stop there. He continues to pile on the verbal abuse of Meg, just ripping apart Meg's self-worth and reminding her that she's nothing more than just an afterthought in the Griffins family. Everyone, they're all busy with their own lives. Peter is doing his own usual nonsense. Lois is off in her own world. And Stewie, well, he's clearly taking notes on how to destroy her in 10 words or less. For him, it's just another chance to be cruel to this poor little Meg. And, well, this is just another day in the misery of what it is to be Meg Griffin. Number 3. Meg's wedding. Now let's talk about the time when Meg thought that she had a shot at happiness, only to get completely humiliated at the school dance and Meg's wedding. Meg, desperate for some sort of affection, finally gets asked to the prom by a guy named Anthony. Whoop seems nice enough, right? Well, wrong.
What do we...
Meg?
At the dance, just when she's feeling like maybe, just maybe, she has a shot at a normal high school experience, things take a nosedive. After a few awkward moments,
Oh, hey, y'all. I'll be outside in a minute.
and Meg getting her hopes up, well, Anthony pulls the classic move. He dumps her for another girl in front of the entire school. It's brutal. Meg is left standing there humiliated in front of everyone as Anthony walks away with his new hotter girl, leaving Meg to face the harsh reality that she will basically just never ever be the popular girl. What's even worse is that no one seems to care, not even her family. Peter and Lois are busy with their own drama, and Stewie, well, he's too busy trying to destroy the world to notice. Meg is left broken, rejected, and once again, the punching bag of the entire damn school. In this moment, Meg's life feels like a never-ending cycle of rejection, and this dance is just the latest reminder that she'll never escape the misery that it is to be Meg Griffin. Still, it's hilarious in its absurdity because really, what else can you do but laugh at the unrelenting horror of her existence? Number 4. Trading Places. Just when you think that Family Guy can't treat Meg any worse, we get the episode called Trading Places, where the Griffin family literally sells her into slavery. Yes, slavery. And no, not a single person bats an eye. After Peter and Lois decide they're done with parenting, they hand over control of the house to Chris and Meg.
You'll be the parents and we'll be the kids.
Roadhouse.
Naturally, things go south pretty fast, but instead of fixing the chaos, Peter and Lois hatch a new plan. How about they auction off their own daughter for some cash? Because what says Parents of the Year more than selling your own child to the highest bidder? What makes this moment even worse is that Peter is so casual about it, as if he's selling an old couch on Craigslist. He barely hesitates. And Lois, well, she just shrugs it off. Meanwhile, Meg is stuck trying to process the fact that her parents have decided that she's worth less than a decent steak dinner. And to add insult to injury, her new owners look like they wouldn't even bother feeding her. This scene is Family Guy's dark humor at its peak. Meg's suffering is so over the top that it somehow loops back around to being hilarious. You're left wondering, how does she still live in this house? But then you remember she doesn't really have a choice, because Meg's entire existence is one long tragic joke, and she's the only one who isn't laughing. Number 5. The dating game. If there's any way to make Meg's social life even worse, it's by catfishing her. In the dating game, Meg finally thinks that she's found someone who actually likes her, a boy named Jeremiah, who seems to be everything she's been hoping for. But of course, things take a hilarious and devastating turn when she finds out that Jeremiah is just a total creep using a fake identity. Meg, desperate for love, jumps headfirst into a relationship with someone that she believes is sweet, thoughtful, and actually interested in her. But when she finally meets up with him, it's revealed that he's been pretending to be this perfect guy online, and in reality, he's just a weird, creepy dude who looks like he's been living in his mom's basement for the past decade. What makes this even more brutal is how completely oblivious Meg is to all the red flags. She's so starved for affection that she's willing to ignore every sign that something's off. And the worst part, her family couldn't care less, and they just watch it all unfold like it's another Tuesday for the Griffin household. This whole thing serves as just another reminder that Meg's love life is a complete dumpster fire, and the universe has a very twisted sense of humor when it comes to Meg. Number 6. The kiss seen around the world. And if you thought that Meg's dating life couldn't get any worse, well, think again. In the kiss scene around the world, Meg finally gets her moment in the spotlight when she shares a kiss with a guy named Anthony. It's her big chance, right? She's got a boyfriend, she's feeling good about herself, life is finally looking up. That is, until the world reminds her just how much that she just doesn't belong in it. Right after that kiss, Anthony suddenly decides to ditch her for a hotter girl. Yep, in classic Meg fashion, she's left standing there, humiliated, as he moves on to someone who apparently doesn't have the same awkwardness that makes Meg, well, Meg. It's like Meg just can't win. She thought that she had a shot at happiness, but instead she gets a harsh reality check that no one, including Anthony, was ever interested in her for more than just a passing moment. What makes this worse is that once again her family is too self-absorbed to even notice. Peter doing God knows what, Lois is completely oblivious, and Stewie probably enjoying the spectacle. So while Meg is having her heart crushed, everyone else is just going on with their miserable lives. In Meg's world, rejection is as constant as the air that she breathes, and it doesn't look like it'll ever stop. Poor Meg. Number 7. The Tan Aquatic of Steve Zissou. If there's one thing that Family Guy excels at, it's just showing how invisible Meg is in the Griffin household, and nowhere is that more evident than in the Tan Aquatic of Steve Zissou. Meg, desperate for some level of attention and a bit of love, well, she goes all in and finally works up the courage to ask a guy to the school dance. But like everyone in Meg's life, it doesn't go quite as planned. She gets ignored and humiliated in front of everyone.
Dodgeball. Connie, would you like to be a captain?
After all that effort, getting all dolled up, trying to put herself out there, Meg finds herself standing alone at the dance, as no one even notices that she's there.
Hey! Hey!
Peter busy doing the usual Peter things, and Lois is as clueless as ever. Meanwhile,
No! You're gonna yell at me!
You're damn right I'm gonna yell at you.
Meg's stuck at the table in the corner, wondering if anyone will even remember her name by the end of the night. And just when it all seems like things couldn't get any worse, Meg's hopes are dashed by the fact that no one, literally no one, gives a crap that she's even alive. It's like she's trapped in her own personal version of hell, where her existence is the punchline to every joke.
Dad! Get away from me! Dad!
It's painful, awkward, and somehow funny all at once, and it's a perfect example of how no matter what Meg does, she'll always be the girl that no one notices, especially when she's hoping for the slightest bit of attention.
This is weird. Am I supposed to eat this? I hate you!
Number 8. Lego My Mego. And as if things weren't bad enough for Meg, let's talk about the time she wasn't just ignored, but straight up kidnapped. After the Griffin family gets caught up in a chaotic mess with the local football team, Meg somehow ends up getting snatched and thrown in the back of a van by the team's rival. You'd think that this would be a big deal, right? Well, not for the Griffins. They're too busy with their own nonsense to even notice that Meg has actually been abducted.
Let your mind race. Take short, rapid breaths.
I'm so scared.
Lois, Meg's dead!
When Peter finally realizes that she's gone, it's more of a casual afterthought than any actual concern. Oh yeah, Meg's been kidnapped. Whatever. It's not even treated like a real crisis. Meg's family is so emotionally checked out that they don't even bother to rescue her urgently. Probably because in their eyes, Meg is just the one who always gets the short end of the stick. Peter's off celebrating with the football team, and Lois, well, she's just glad for some peace and quiet.
Hey, Ma, check it out. I'm married to a pro athlete.
This entire kidnapping scenario is a huge slap in the face to Meg, who not only does she get kidnapped, but her own family barely even notices. It's yet another example of how Meg's misery is always played for laughs, and how her family's emotional neglect turns even life-threatening situations into background noise. Poor Meg can't even get abducted without being treated like an afterthought. Number 9. Courtship of Stewie's father. In the courtship of Stewie's father, Meg once again finds herself shoved to the side in favor of the more important family members. This time, it's because Stewie decides that he wants a break from being the baby in the family, so he decides that he wants to experience the world as a grown-up, leaving Meg completely irrelevant in the process.
Lois, Brian won't take me to the park. Lois! Damn it, woman, pay attention to me!
Ow!
When Stewie plans a big night out with Peter, Meg hopes for just a little bit of attention, or maybe a moment where she's not completely ignored. Spoiler alert, she doesn't get it. Instead of taking part in any of the family's bonding time, Meg ends up stuck at home, while Peter and Stewie have all the fun. Naturally, Meg's resentment builds as she watches her family completely forget that she even exists, and it becomes clear that she's always the afterthought.
There you go! Peanut butter jelly! Peanut butter jelly!
Peter, so caught up in Stewie's latest scheme, doesn't even notice that Meg is being left out in the cold. Lois is too busy with her own agenda and fails to realize that her daughter is actively being pushed aside once again. This episode sums up Meg's entire existence perfectly, being ignored, sidelined, and treated like an inconvenience. When the family's focused on what's fun or important, Meg is just a background character, never getting the chance to step into the spotlight. In this case, it's Stewie's world and Meg is just living in it, if she's even acknowledged at all. Number 10. 15 Minutes of Shame. We're wrapping things up with one of the most ridiculous over-the-top ways that Meg gets treated like total garbage. In the Griffin family history, she gets straight up replaced in her own family's legacy. When the Griffins look back at their family history, they find out that their ancestors were incredibly successful and influential.
The story of the Griffin family history. All right, I'll see what I can do.
But surprise, surprise, Meg isn't even considered important enough to be part of the family and their achievements.
Meg, go get us some sandwiches.
Wait a minute, that's a great idea.
Not only does her entire lineage skip over her, but the family decides to focus on Stewie's historical legacies instead. What makes this so absurd? Well, while Meg is stuck looking at a clueless fool at this moment, the rest of the family is getting all the glory. Peter decides to crown Stewie as the one who will carry the family's name forward. And that's right, Meg, who's already emotionally scarred and is literally the most overlooked member of the Griffin clan, is told that she has, well, no real place in the family business. It's like the universe didn't just forget her, it actually erased her from the existence. At this point, it's impossible not to laugh though, because it's just the pinnacle of Meg's existence. She's so ignored that even her own family doesn't want her included in their weird, messed up family history. It's the final cherry on top of a very sad but hilariously tragic life.
She asked if we were gonna have our way with her.
Pretty!
Poor Meg. She's just the girl who can't even be acknowledged for existing. Number 11. Don't Make Me Over. Now let's take a look at Don't Make Me Over, which is Season 4, Episode 4, where Meg's love life gets a shot at redemption, only for it to crash and burn in the most hilarious and brutal way possible. After a lifetime of being overlooked and mocked by her family, Meg finally gets a moment to shine, but as we all know, nothing ever goes right for her. Things kick off when the Griffins accidentally ruin Mort Goldman's pharmacy, and as an apology, they're given free makeovers.
My daughter needs a makeover like there's no freaking tomorrow.
Looks like we've got a winner, Tom.
While the rest of the family looks only slightly better, Meg is transformed into someone almost unrecognizable, and suddenly people start to notice her.
Hey Meg, we noticed Craig Hoffman just asked you out.
For once in her life, Meg isn't invisible. It's like the makeover fairy waved a magic wand and bam, she's a hot commodity. Feeling like the universe finally gave her a break, Meg musters up the courage to ask a guy out. For a brief, shining moment, it seems like maybe, just maybe, she'll get the happily ever after that she deserves. But in typical Family Guy fashion, this isn't a fairy tale. It's a train wreck waiting to happen. The guy, it turns out that he isn't interested in Meg at all. He's interested in the shiny new version of her that's been carefully crafted by the makeover. She's not even a person anymore at this point. She's just a trophy that he can parade around. And of course, just when Meg is trying to navigate this tiny spark of hope in her life, Peter swoops in, steals the limelight, and turns it into another disaster for Meg. He starts his own family band, shoving Meg to the side so he can live out his rock star fantasy. Meg's brief moment of being seen is snuffed out like a candle in the wind, and she's back to being the girl that no one cares about. It's classic Meg. She gets a glimpse of what it's like to be valued, only to have it ripped away faster than you can say the Griffin's family chaos. And so she's left in the dust once again, wondering if she'll ever get her moment to actually shine. The answer, well, probably not. Number 12, Meg's road rage moment in Road to Rupert. In Road to Rupert, Meg Griffin gets roped into yet another situation that proves her family sees her less as a person and more as a utility. When Peter loses his driver's license after a drunken joyride through the mall, does he take responsibility like a grown man? Of course not.
Hey, Joe.
Good morning, Peter. I'm here to revoke your driver's license.
What? Okay, well, I guess you can take my license. All you gotta do
You're
is take...
starting to piss me off!
Instead, he recruits Meg as his personal chauffeur because apparently being the family punching bag wasn't enough for her resume. For the moment, Meg gets behind the wheel and it's pretty clear that things just aren't going to end well. Peter immediately turns her car into a booze-soaked clown car by loading it with Quagmire, Cleveland, and of course, Joe.
God, will you guys just shut up back there?
What follows is the road trip from hell, with Meg chauffeuring the 4 fully grown children who act like they've never been let out of the frat house. She gets 0 thanks, 0 respect, and a whole lot of Peter treating her like she's a goddamn Uber driver. Except this Uber ride comes with open containers and no tips. Things hit a boiling point when some jackass rear-ends her car and blames her for it. Now, most people would try to defuse the situation, but Meg, she's done. She's tapped out. She's out of the car and she unleashes absolute hell on this guy, landing punches like she's been waiting for this moment for all of her life.
What the hell is your problem, you dumb bimbo?
That was awesome!
Peter watches from the sidelines and instead of stopping her, well, I don't know, maybe even just helping, he actually cheers her on like she's starring in a low-budget version of a UFC fight. For once, he's actually proud of her. But not because she's standing up for herself, but because it's entertaining as hell to watch. And his awkward daughter gets into a full street fight. She beats the hell out of some dude, and she finally gets Peter to cheer for her. And while this may seem like a win for Meg, let's not kid ourselves. The second the adrenaline wears off, Peter is back to ignoring her existence. This isn't character growth or some touching father-daughter moment. It's Peter being Peter, treating Meg like a source of some cheap laughs instead of an actual human being. In the end, it's the only thing that Meg gets out of this whole mess is a temporary ego boost and maybe a new reputation as the scariest teen driver in all of Quahog. But hey, at least she finally made Peter proud. Too bad it took road rage and a felony assault to get there. Well, luckily classic Meg, she can't even win without losing. Number 13. Dial Meg for Murder. In the episode Dial Meg for Murder, Meg undergoes a full personality transformation. You might be thinking that she finally started to stand up for herself, but nope, that is not the case. Yes, she transformed, but not in a positive way. This is one of the most shocking twists in all of Family Guy. Meg turns into a full rebel with a criminal streak after falling in love with a man who is jailed.
Meg.
No, I will, Luke. If it takes 10 years or 20 years, I will be here when you get out.
At first glance, it appears like Meg is finally standing up for herself and refusing to be the family's punching bag. But of course, the universe doesn't let her have that for too long. Meg gets drawn into a life of crime as her new lover persuades her to carry out his criminal activities.
Did you also get caught trying to vote in Ohio?
What's worse, her family hardly bats an eye after she gets caught. They don't even pay her a visit in jail. They're just glad that they don't have to deal with her instead. Talk about abandonment.
Meg gets out of jail today.
Seems like just yesterday we rented a room to that fly to...
And to top it all off, Meg is treated as the family's personal errand girl once she gets released from prison. They use her criminal activities to their advantage, intimidating others and taking care of their little issues. Meg's little act of resistance ultimately turns into just another episode in her long history of being taken advantage of and being a victim. Number 14, and then there were fewer. And if you thought Meg could stay away from all the crime and murders, well, think again. The Griffins end up in a mansion with a number of other Quahog residents in this Family Guy murder mystery episode. Despite all the excitement and tension in this episode, Meg's experience is certainly terrible.
Oh, sweet, a pool table. Let's see if we can find some cues.
To begin with, nobody even acknowledges Meg. Meg finds herself on the sidelines once more while Peter, Lois, and the others are occupied with socializing and getting involved in the mystery. So, she is just so unnoticed by everyone that her existence hardly stands out throughout all of the chaos. Yet, Meg's attempt to help with the investigation is the most terrible part. When Peter asks everyone to split up and find the murderer, he asks Meg to team up with Brian and Stewie. They reject it instantly. The pure disrespect.
Meg, you go with Brian and Stewie.
No, she can't.
What could have been worse than that? Well, wait. It's the killer's own actions, or lack thereof. That's the ultimate insult in this episode. The killer ignores Meg completely, but almost all the other characters are targeted in some way or another. She doesn't even deserve being a victim. As if her existence is that worthless. In Meg's reality, being a victim feels like a label that she just can't peel off. A weight that she's forced to carry wherever she goes in Quahog. Number 15. Seahorse Seashell Party. When you start to think that Meg won't ever clap back at her family, well, think again. Seahorse Seashell Party is the episode that most illustrates Meg's role as the family scapegoat. The Griffins are stranded at home together during a hurricane, and their house soon becomes a psychological battlefield. Meg becomes the center of everyone's annoyance as usual. She is the target of the year's worth of repressed rage from Peter, Lois, and even Chris, who blames her for everything. The twist is that in this episode, Meg fights back for the first time. She criticizes her family for their ongoing mistreatment. She lashes out at Chris for being simply stupid, telling him how he always ridicules her and makes her feel like he hates her.
You're my brother. You're supposed to be on my side, and you're such a bastard to me.
Next, she calls her very own mother, Lois, a narcissistic control freak, telling her how she comes at her for all of her shortcomings, even though her mother has done irresponsible and reckless things in her past too.
Shoplifter, the drug addict, the whore who let Gene Simmons and Bill Clinton go to town on her.
Well, when you think that she's done lashing out, wait for what she says to Peter. Well, she labels Peter as a selfish and extremely irresponsible dad.
Going?
You're a fat, lazy, abusive, blue-collar Irish Catholic. You've lived half your life, and you have nothing to show for it. Because he's a selfish, fat idiot.
You shut up, all of you!
It's a strong moment that demonstrates Meg isn't as weak or ignorant as many people believe. But this doesn't stay like this for long. Meg chooses to apologize and voluntarily returns to becoming the punching bag after seeing the family cannot function without having someone to put the blame on. Maybe she likes being the victim? It's among one of the most tragic scenes in Family Guy history. After standing up for herself, Meg is compelled to return to her position as the family's emotional vent. Don't you think Meg deserves a break? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe for more Family Guy moments, and we will catch you on the next one.